There is a big tax development that has just come out directly from the mouth of the tax man himself, talking about how one country's citizens are now going to have to pay no matter where they live if they don't live the way the government wants them to. I'm not talking about the United States. I'm talking about a new country. And this is almost an emergency if you live in that country. And so we're not going to edit this episode very well. Let's get into what you need to know. I'm going to tell you what's happening and why this is so important, particularly if you live in the country that's doing this, but even if you don't. Let me first explain what citizenship-based taxation is. This is, you're a citizen of our country, so no matter where you live, even if it's not in our country, we're going to tax you. The only country that really does this on a universal level is the United States. And yes, you have the foreign earned income exclusion. You can use foreign corporations. If you have foreign partners, it can be potentially even better. I mean, there are ways to dramatically reduce your tax. I think we found that the average American we work with who wants to reduce their tax, they reduce it by 80% or more. However, as a citizen under citizenship-based taxation, you not only have the tax payment, in which case, hey, you still may owe something, even if it's dramatically less. You still have to file taxes. If you live in another country where they have taxes, now it becomes a complicated battle. You may have to do inorganic things in your business. You may not be able to open certain bank accounts, make certain investments, be on certain crypto exchanges. Heck, the banks and brokerage may kick you out. We don't want your business because you're too much of a hassle. Those are all the things related to citizenship-based taxation and the regulations that the United States puts on their citizens. Everybody else up until now, Canada, Australia, Germany, all the Western countries have what's called residential taxation. If you live in our country, citizen or not, you'll pay tax on everything you do around the world. So if you live in Canada and you have a rental apartment in Dubai, you'll deal with Dubai and whatever they want from you first, and they are rolling out some taxes now, and then whatever's left, you'll top up where you live. So basically, you're not able to reduce your taxes because you live in the country. But you can leave the country through a process called tax non-residence. That has become harder and harder. We've worked with our tax lawyers and preparers around the world who have helped our clients, and every year it becomes a little bit more to do. Right, the 183-day rule, we've told you for years, has not been a factor. You really have to get in there with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that you're not connected to the country that you're leaving. But you could still keep your passport, still travel as an Australian, Canadian, German, what have you, and get out of the tax net if you did it right. That's changing now. And so what I've been telling you for 3 or 4 years is that I believe more countries will follow the United States, but they might not do it in quite a ballsy way. They'll do it through the back door. They'll do kind of the lame, the weak sauce version. That country that's just announced they're going to do that is Australia. And here's how it works. If you want to move your life overseas to another country and basically live there all the time, you can still use the rules of, hey, it's kind of hard to get out of Australia, but you want to go and live somewhere full time? All right, we're in favor of that, but you need to be a tax resident. And so a tax resident could be in a country where there is no tax, or it's territorial, so there's no tax on foreign, or it's lump sum, you pay one small fixed amount no matter how much you make, or it could be remittance-based, which means whatever money you bring in, you pay tax on. There's lots of different ways that even in countries that have high headline tax rates, you can pay not a lot. We've helped our clients move to 31 different tax-friendly countries in recent years. And so if you're just going to move full-time all the way in one place and you're going to pay something or at least deal with the complexities of tax where you're moving, then for now, you're going to be okay. But if you want to live as a digital nomad, if you want to do what I used to do and travel with a suitcase behind you, if you want to travel around the world building your business and opening offices in different places around the world to where you're never in one place for that long, if you want to follow my trifecta method where you have 3 different homes in 3 places of the world because you just like the idea of 3 different lifestyles for parts of the year, basically the snowbird lifestyle, it's basically a takeoff on that. That is going to be a problem for Australians now because with the ATO, the tax man in Australia has come out and said, hey, listen, if you don't live the way that we want you to live, you might as well just pay tax to Australia. Now, this video is not tax advice. We're talking about stuff that has just recently come out. I'm sure it will continue to be clarified, and some of this I am putting in my own words to explain it so that people understand what I'm talking about. But the bottom line is, What Australia is saying is no more can you go and say, hey, I'm going to go to a country where I only need to spend 1 day or 1 month or 60 days and I can pay some flat amount, or I can only pay on certain kinds of income. And so it's possible if you're constantly traveling around, if you're the kind of person who's never in one place for that long, to go to a country and they'll say, hey, listen, if you spend a little bit of time here or put a little bit of money on one of our banks or do whatever, you can pay from $0 to $25,000 a year, and now you have a tax residence, which you can take to banks, you can take to brokerage accounts, you can take to everyone in the financial system who wants to know in order to give you an account, hey, where do you pay tax? Here it is. What's not going to happen now, it seems, is, okay, those people who were doing that, they were not spending a lot of time in Australia. Right? It's not allowed under those tax programs. You can't, live in one of these countries for a month and then go back and live in Australia for 11 months or even 6 months. It's just not allowed. That was for people who were constantly traveling around who wouldn't qualify for tax residence, but they just said, hey, to be a part of the world, everyone wants to know where you pay tax, thanks to things like CRS and FATCA. That was the solution. No longer good enough for Australia. And so certainly the tax resident of nowhere hasn't really been a thing. Now the tax resident of somewhere, if you don't do what Australia wants you to do, is also not going to be a thing. And so again, we're going to see how this is going to evolve, but very clearly it's coming out. Digital nomads, not good if you're Australian. Now, theoretically, this is not exactly citizenship-based taxation in the sense of if you are just a tax resident of Australia, this could also apply to you. And so it looks somewhat like what Norway or some of the Scandinavian countries do, where they'll say, all right, you can leave, follow these criteria, and then for 3 years, for example, we're going to watch you. Mexico is a version of that as well. You can only go to one of these countries that we like for a while, and we're going to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So they restrict you because you live there from having a problem. By the way, all the Americans and Westerners who are going to live in Mexico thinking, hey, I'll just live here, who will catch me? Some of you are going to be in for a rude awakening when you go to leave and the Mexican tax authority wants to track you for the next 3 years, and they're going to tell you where you can move. So Mexican tax residence is a separate issue. But Australia is basically saying, we don't want digital nomads. We don't want people who live the trifecta lifestyle. We don't want you to run your business all around the world. And so what do I think you should do? Well, number one, if you're tired of paying Australian taxes, you can choose from any one of the 31 different tax-friendly countries that we've helped our clients move to. And we have people in our network in Australia who understand the international side of tax, combined with people who understand the tax where you're going. It's a holistic solution. And so perhaps the best thing to do, listen, I'm not giving you tax advice because we have to see this plays out and we have to see your individual circumstance. But the answer might be you have no choice but to go and live full-time in one place, which means a lot of the Australians we've worked with, hey, I kind of like Montenegro, I kind of like this one, I kind of like that one. Let me go check them out, 3 months at a time for a year, and then I'll decide. Or let me go check out, Thailand and Malaysia and the Philippines. That may be, the way of the dodo bird. You're going to have to just choose one place and go there, and if you don't like it, you can change it later. The other thing I think you should be doing if you're Australian, and also I would say Canada is the one that also talks about this. Those are two countries that are kind of far away from the rest of the world compared to, like, let's say, a European country. I'd never thought the UK was going to be as aggressive on this kind of thing because it's not in the culture of a country that's so close to all the other countries. But if I'm Australian, and I'll throw in Canada too, if I'm Canadian, I'm going to start working on my second passport because now the camel's nose is under the tent. And so what's the next step potentially? You know what, we'll just tax everybody. I mean, it was, all right, listen, if you're living in some high tax place, then of course we'll leave you alone. But if you're not paying it, if you're living in Dubai and you're an Australian and you're carrying our passport, that's the next logical step. They're already saying if you're going to spend your time in different places, just pay Australia. Sorry, not good enough. You have not left. We don't care if you are not in Australia. 1-883-DAYS test, the DAYS test, other tests, it doesn't matter. We're going to basically say your closer connection is to Australia, even if you're not here, because you are in other places and you haven't settled down. Maybe some people don't want to settle down. So now your citizenship, where you've spent time, where you've paid, your blood, sweat, and tears went into funding the government, the roads, the schools, the bridges, that's no longer enough. I would be working on getting my second passport. And if we look at the fact that it may be a couple of years before the screws get tightened more, or if you're a Canadian, before they tighten the screws to begin with, you can go out and look at citizenship by descent. We help people do that. We've helped a number of Greek Australians, for example. You can go back through your parents, your grandparents, sometimes your great-grandparents, sometimes even a little bit further. That could be a way to get an affordable passport. We have advised some Australians against citizenship by investment. We didn't think they needed it. I still don't necessarily think that you need it, but you may need it if you're going to live a certain lifestyle. And so that might be something to look at. If you're going to hire people around the world, if you're going to open offices, if you're going to do other things, there may be other ways to get second passports that you haven't even considered. That's what we help people figure out here at Nomad Capitalist is, how do I solve my tax problem with our network of tax lawyers and experts? Which second passport's best and what passport do I need? Maybe, again, maybe you don't need a passport at all, or maybe you can afford to wait a few years for a European citizenship by descent to come in because they're not going to come overnight. But I would want to have a second passport of some kind, because the next step is we're some level of U.S. citizenship-based taxation. This is basically your government telling you how you can live that's acceptable, and if they don't like the way you live, pay us, even if you're not here. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but that's where we stand right now. I do think that Canada has talked about that. Here's my other thing. If you're in Australia and you're like, I don't know what to do, and I'm not like quite at the level where maybe I should be buying a passport, Nomad Capitalist Live this September, Kuala Lumpur. It's not that far away, and you're going to learn 4 days of off-the-charts information about all this stuff. And your head's going to be exploding, as everyone who's come before has told us. If you want to meet hundreds of people who are doing this, you want to talk to my team, you want to be part of a Q&A, you want to learn all the different strategies, we're going to be talking that. Of course, everything's going to be fully legal. How do you keep it above board? You should not be, with all the stuff the tax man is doing now with AI, and they're looking into everybody, I would not be cutting any corners. And so if you want to come to, if you're not ready for the client-side experience, Nomad Capitalist Live in Kuala Lumpur, we did that precisely to try and get more people from Australia and New Zealand and that part of the world to come, and expats who are already in Thailand and Malaysia, to come and see us. You can go to nomadcapitalist.com/live and get your tickets if that's the way. If you just want to come and learn for 4 days of off-the-charts information and make your plan then, that's one way to do it. Or you go to nomadcapitalist.com and you can work with us. Listen, I left the United States, and I had my own personal issues with the United States, but one of the side fringe benefits of not being an American anymore is that's no longer my problem. I think that you're going to see people, as I've been telling you for years, from Australia and maybe elsewhere, English-speaking countries in particular, where they're going to want you to pay the piper just because you happen to be born there, and this is a pretty dramatic first step in that direction from Australia.